We are continuing our video series on the 1980s Washington Redskins, and in today's video, we are going over, if I can spit it out, Greg. We are going over John Riggins, number 44 here, folks. So let's get into it. And welcome back to another video here on the Washington Football Maniacs channel. My name is Greg Sykes. I am your host. Thank you for joining us today, folks. This channel, of course, is dedicated to news and commentary for the Washington Commanders. If you're down with that, please make sure that you have subscribed to this channel. And when you do, also make sure that you hit that notification bell so you won't miss any other video releases. Hey, before we get into the video, a lot of us tend to struggle financially. We get into these, just issues with, medical bills. Maybe we're trying to send our kids to college, or maybe we have our kids in private school and we're just, we're making that dollar stretch as much as we possibly can. We're having to give up our favorite streaming apps, or, our streaming music apps or video apps, and maybe we're having to eat out a few times less during the week because we're getting thin. Well, my partner here at Mint Mobile, they understand that, and so they're trying to do their part into lowering your cell phone bill so you're not having to spend so much. So just check out and see if this might be something for you. Look, if your family is anything like mine, you have probably at one point or another have had to make some major sacrifices. Maybe you've had an unexpected medical bill pop up, or your car breaks down. Maybe you're just trying to have some money saved up for your child's education. Well, that is why I'm so intrigued by Mint Mobile, who this video is in partnership with. They offer premium wireless starting at $15 a month. I could get high-speed data and unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest 5G network. I could even bring my phone along with my current phone number, contacts. I'm telling you, I am sacrificing absolutely nothing. Everything that you can do with your big-time cell phone service, you can do with Mint Mobile. So how hard is it to switch your service? I switched to Mint Mobile in less than 15 minutes. How did I do it? Well, it was easy. I just used my phone's eSIM card. 15 minutes later, let me tell you, you are up and running. You're making phone calls, you're using data. But Greg, my phone is a little bit older. I don't have one of them eSIM doohickeys. A doohickey. Oh, okay. Well, you don't need an eSIM doohickey. If you don't have an eSIM doohickey, Mint Mobile will send you a physical SIM card for free. That's right, for free. So if you want to save a little money on your wireless without making any sacrifices, why don't you go to my link in the description below. It is trymintmobile.com/maniacs to get started on getting premium wireless service for as low as $15 a month. And this is when you sign up for a 3-month plan. And get this, new customers, if you sign up for a Mint Mobile plan before May 31st, you will get a 6-month subscription to Paramount Plus Essential on Mint Mobile. Visit Mint Mobile today. Link will be in the description below. Now back to the podcast. So, as we said in episode 1, the 1980s Washington Redskins didn't necessarily have what we considered a bunch of superstars on their team. As a matter of fact, if you go back and you watch some of the specials on the Super Bowls, like America's team that, the NFL Network came out with a few years ago, chronicling, is that a word, chronicling? Yeah, that sounds good. Anyway, we're going to go with that. About all of the Super Bowl champions, and they were talking about the 1982 Washington Redskins team that basically had a bunch of throwaway players that other teams didn't seem to want, but they came to Washington and they just seemed to work. Bobby Beathard had a way of being able to find the diamonds in the rough. And he was able to bring these guys to Washington, and Joe Gibbs was able to somehow get these guys to work together and built a great team, championship teams, teams that year in and year out were perennial winners, teams that were always teams that seemed like that they could get into the Super Bowl. And so, how do they do it? Well, you did it with guys like Daryl Green, Joe Jacoby, Wilbur Marshall, Doug Williams, Joe Theismann, and of course, the guy we're going to talk about today, John Riggins, number 44, right? Now, John Riggins, he was a very unique character, right? He was this easy-go-lucky type of guy that he didn't really talk a whole lot. He just came in and did his job. When he scored touchdowns, he's the type of guy who just kind of, flicks the ball to the official and just kind of gently runs back to the sideline, sits down, maybe takes a hit or two of oxygen on the sideline, drinks his Gatorade, and that's it. Just, waits until the offense trots back on the field. So, he wasn't a very high-strung guy whatsoever, right? And the only time, or I should say the time that he would speak, you would listen. And, there were times where when the Redskins started, becoming the type of team that would kind of just pass the ball all around and, scoring a lot of points but not really winning football games, that's when he would speak up and say, I need the football. And, those were times you would listen to John Riggins because John Riggins he knew what to do. And he knew that if you're going to win football games, you need to give it to the Diesel because the Diesel knew what to do. He would just run over top of guys. It wasn't very often that you would see him getting pushed around or getting pushed backwards. Now, he was more effective, of course, running, what was it, east to west, not north to south. I hope I'm getting my directions right. He wasn't running, he wasn't the type of running back that you can kind of run him out to the sideline and then he would try to find an opening and then cut in. He was the type of guy who he's going to go straight up the middle or you're opening a hole there with the counter trays and the counter gaps and things like that. He was that was the type of fullback he was. And so John Riggins, he was a powerful running back, right? And he also wasn't really the type of back that you're going to be, he wasn't a pass receiving back. Now, every now and then, Theismann would throw in the football, but that was very rare. Most of the time, he's the type of back you're just going to hand it off to him. So Riggins, though, of course, he was our Super Bowl hero in Super Bowl 17 on that 4th-and-1 touchdown run. The Redskins were down 17-13 in the fourth quarter, and he breaks it for, it was that counter tray, and he, was it 72 chip? Was that the call? And he breaks it up to the left there, and breaks that tackle, and the rest was history. The Redskins scored another touchdown after that to win the football game. And so John Riggins, rather, excellent football player, had another fine season after that. He was a rushing touchdown leader in 83 and 84. So even, 2 seasons after that Super Bowl season there, and of course had another Super Bowl season following that. Us Redskins fans tend to not really talk about the 83 Super Bowl much, even though that 83 season was another dominant season for this team. It seemed like it was, and Patriots fans probably feel the same way of their undefeated season. It's like it was just a shame that we didn't finish it off with actually winning that Super Bowl that year. But John Riggins just really had a fantastic career. So we're just going to quickly take a quick snapshot of his numbers. So of course, now he's 74 years old. It's hard to believe, right? Time just flies. He was 6'2", 230 pounds. As college, he went to Kansas. Um, he was drafted in the first round, sixth overall pick. Was drafted by the New York Jets, and I remember, of course, now I don't personally remember because I was not quite born yet. Thank God I can say that in 1971, but I do remember seeing pictures of him as a New York Jet. Believe it was he had a mohawk. Well, at first he had kind of like almost like a blown out white man afro, and that mustache, and then he had had a mohawk there for a while. So he had it was weird. It was like he had this. He seemed like he had this very eccentric personality, from what it seemed like. Um, but yet, like maybe I guess off the football field he did, and then with the Jets. But it seemed like then with the Redskins, it was like it was more of a business like. I don't know how else to explain it. And I wasn't there, but it just on the field he wasn't dancing or anything like that. He was all business. But he went to the Redskins in '76 after 4 seasons with the Jets. And he played for the Redskins for 3 seasons, '76 to '79, and he basically quit football in '79 and basically held out. Didn't play football. He didn't really retire. He just held out and didn't play in 1980. And then Joe Gibbs was hired in '81. He was still under contract, I believe it was, with the Redskins. He just didn't play for that year. And Joe Gibbs, I remember the story of him coming to talk to John Riggins, and I think the plan was that he was going to see if he could try to trade John Riggins. And Riggins was like, by the way, I have this no trade clause in my contract. So he couldn't get rid of him, which proved to be fantastic for Joe Gibbs because, Riggins turned out to be one of the centerpieces, if not the centerpiece, for his team in the early '80s. So, came back to play for the Redskins from '81 to '85. Super Bowl champion, of course, for Super Bowl 17. He was the MVP for that Super Bowl. NFL Comeback Player of the Year in '78. First team All-Pro in '83. He made the Pro Bowl in 1975. Two-time NFL rushing touchdown leader in '83 and '84. NFL 1980's All-Decade Team. Burt Bell Award in 1983. He was the Washington Redskins 90 greatest. Oh, Greg. The Washington Redskins 90 greatest players. Washington Redskins Ring of Fame. Now I know that this says Washington Commanders, but come on. He was a Redskin. All right, I'm not going to be too PC. Most rushing has the NFL record most rushing yards in the postseason, 610 yards in 1982. Career NFL stats: rushing yards 11,352, rushing average for 3.9, which seems pretty modest for today's NFL. Rushing touchdowns 105, receptions 250, which seems Seems odd for John Riggins, doesn't it? Even more so, receiving yards 2,090, receiving touchdowns 12. I mean, because he was not a receiving back when I watched him play. Um, but John Riggins, I mean, he was, let's talk about the contract dispute. During training camp in July 1980, Riggins requested to renegotiate his $300,000 per year contract, and the Redskins refused. He then chose to leave camp, and the Redskins placed him on the left camp retired list, a move that made him ineligible to play for any other team in the league. Riggins sat out the 1980 season and did not rejoin the Redskins until 1981, when new Washington head coach Joe Gibbs traveled to Kansas to make a peace offering. Gibbs recalled he had a camouflage outfit on. He had been hunting, him and a buddy. He had a beer can in his hand. It was 10 o'clock in the morning, and he's meeting his coach for the first time and thinking sarcastically, this guy really impresses me. But I went in there, and halfway through the conversation, he says, you need to get me back there. I'll make you famous. I thought to myself, oh my God, he's an egomaniac. I thought, I'll get him back and then I'll trade him. I'm not putting up with his fruitcake. So I fly back to Washington. 2 days later, he calls me. He says, Joe, I made up my mind. I'm going to play next season. I thought it was great. I've got him back. I'll trade that sucker. But then he says, there's only one thing I want in my contract. I asked what it was. He says, a no trade clause. Okay, so yeah. So the story was he didn't tell Joe Gibbs right there when Joe Gibbs was talking to him then in Kansas. It was like a couple of days later. So, of course, Riggins' return also came at the suggestion of Ed Garvey, who was the executive director of the NFL Players Association. 11 months after he left, Riggins returned to training camp in 1981 with a new contract, telling the media, I'm bored, I'm broken, I'm back. Upon Riggins' return in 81, he managed just 714 rushing yards but scored 13 touchdowns. And during the strike-shortened 1982 season, Riggins led the team with 553 rushing yards but averaged just 3 yards per carry. He was much more successful during the playoffs, during which he gained 444 yards in victories over the Detroit Lions, Minnesota Vikings, where he had a franchise playoff record of 185 yards, and Dallas Cowboys, and helped the Redskins reached Super Bowl 17. And Riggins rushed for a then Super Bowl record 166 yards on 38 carries as the Redskins beat the Miami Dolphins 27-17. He was then named Super Bowl MVP. 70 chip. Did I say 72 chip? I was close. 70 chip. I should know that. So yeah, that was the 4th-and-1 play, and it was a 43-yard touchdown run. So there you have it. He's definitely one of the greatest Redskin player since I have been born, since I have been able to watch the Redskins, Commanders, whoever that they're going to be called from here on out, play. And if you did not get a chance to watch him play, he was a fantastic player. Certainly for that era of football, which was heavily regarded as run first to set up the pass type of NFL back then. That's not saying that you didn't have teams that were pass heavy. You had teams like the Houston Oilers who were run and shoot. And things like that. Later on, toward the end of the 80s, into the early 90s, you had the Buffalo Bills that were the run and shoot. Well, even the Denver Broncos with John Elway, they were pretty heavy with John Elway being the shotgun most of the time. And they were pretty pass happy as well. So there were a lot of teams that were, you know, pass first mentality, but would also run. But clearly, the NFL really focused on a strong running game back then, and so guys like John Riggins was certainly extremely important for the game of football, and he was certainly very important for the Washington Redskins back then. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Washington Football Maniacs. If you did, give it a like and give it a share, if you will. And with that said, I will see you in the next episode. Take care.